What is up, Jack and Jill motorcycle out there in BMW land? As you can see, I got an engine on my lift. I'm getting ready to tear it apart. We're gonna cut it out, as it were. This is the engine out of the R1200GS parts bike. That was a 2005, still got the parts sitting in a bin. You might think the smart thing to do is keep an engine and transmission intact. But this engine and transmission have 96,000 miles on them, and they're not really worth anything. You can't really sell a 96,000 mile engine without the bike that it goes in, and nobody really wants parts out of a 96,000 mile engine. So it's basically scrap. So we're gonna take it apart piece by piece. Take a look. I want to pull the crankshaft out of this thing so that we can see what the crankshaft looks like. We're going to start with the cylinders. I'm going to show you one of them because it's the same on both sides. Well, there are some minor differences, but we're tearing it apart. We're not putting it back together. You're not fixing this thing, so we can just tear it apart. So we're going to start here on the side. Got it clamped into the tire, the front wheel holder of the lift here, and it's going to take a little while to do this. It's a pretty easy but time consuming, wouldn't you say, George?
Yep, especially coming apart.
Especially coming apart, right. I'm gonna tackle this with just basic hand tools. I've got my Cruise Tools kit that rails that they sent me. It's mostly Torx bits, so that's mostly what I'll be using, and regular hand tools that you might have at home. So we're gonna start by taking off the horns here, the oil lines, the hard oil lines. Then we gotta get at the front cover so that we can get the engine to top dead center by rotating the crankshaft manually, just to make it a little bit easier to get the cylinder head apart. The only thing really worth saving on this engine is the alternator. The starter has already been taken off and put on somebody else's bike. The cylinder head covers are worth saving because those get scratched and dented and holes in them all the time. The front cover, because it's plastic and it's not going to really deteriorate, that might be worth saving. But pretty much the rest of it is scrap. Yeah, that's where we are, and we're going to get going. So thanks for joining us. Remember to subscribe and ring the bell and hit the like button and post your questions and comments, and we'll do our best to get back to you as soon as we can. In the meantime, feel free to go join the MOA. Check it out at bmwmoa.org if you're not already a member. And if you are a member, renew for a year and help support content like this on the BMW MOA YouTube channel. T25, most useful tool on a BMW. Oh, too big. That one's 25.
Yeah, well, that's what it is. There's 220s and 225s. 220s and 325s.
I'm probably gonna have to cut this up into multiple videos because you do this for too long. Yeah, boring, exactly. Hey, there we go. Now the cover's coming off. See, it's real easy when you get all the screws out.
Or pull really hard.
Does that look important? So there's the alternator belt. Oh, that's gonna need a socket. But that's the right size, so that's a T30. What is the small plastic thing on the outside of the front of the engine below the crank? Is it some kind of sensor?
Below the crank?
Yeah, below the crank. It's square with a round insert.
Possibly the crank sensor, but that's on top.
This thing right here.
Oh, that's just a cover.
Oh, just a cover. What's it cover?
Balance shaft.
Balance shaft. So far, the only thing to fall out of here is dirt, not oil. Cover. There's a little bit of oil. That's one of the hard oil lines. You can see I did not take it apart carefully on the other end. I just cut that. Once again, it's because I knew I was not putting the engine back together. Ooh, we got E-Torx here, George. Woo-hoo. On the alternators, held down with E-Torx. I don't know if I have any.
Because they don't want people stealing that, apparently.
Yeah. That bolt is unbelievably tight for just holding on a piece of plastic.
Well, it hasn't been off.
In 16 years. I think they put Loctite on it.
Could.
Am I going to need heat to get anything off of this?
Possibly.
Probably wouldn't hurt. That was your probably wouldn't hurt face.
Nice and rusty.
Okay, now that's out of our way. What's going on is George is going to show me how to release the tension on this alternator belt to make the alternator easier to take off. Ooh, that looks like a fun tool.
That is the correct factory tool for taking off and putting on the alternator belt.
Okay, that makes sense. I see how that works. So you can see it's grooved, or it's got a thing there. Half-inch drive.
Half-inch drive.
Which they probably don't call that in metric, do they? What do they call that size drive?
Half-inch drive.
Now, see, that's just not fair. Okay, what's next?
It's like buying a 2x4 in England. So, most people don't want to spend the money for one of those.
What's that cost?
15 years ago, it was $100.
Screwdriver, big. Should we be trying to save the alternator belt? It looks like it's in decent condition.
It is in decent condition.
So we save that as an emergency spare?
We could.
Okay. Oh, you're just pushing it out of the grooves as you turn the crank. And then alternator belt.
And if you wanted to put it back on, what do we say?
Assembly is reverse of disassembly.
Assembly is the reversal of assembly. Now this is hard because I don't usually do it with screwdrivers since I have
The proper tool.
Oop.
Oops.
I'm probably not going to be able to do this.
It's okay. I'm betting both your arms are blocking it anyways. Hey, look at that. It's just like magic. Now show me how the real tool works. And then you just crank it. Oh, you still have to use a screwdriver to get it on that side of the flange.
This doesn't really work well taking them off. I think they want you to cut them off.
Yeah. But it will do the trick,
But
clearly.
it will take them off,
My face. Not in the face, not in the face.
I think. I've never taken one off with one of these.
I guess we're learning together. Yeah, I don't feel like that's the right way to do it.
Yeah. I think they just tell you to cut it off in the manual. Tool to put it back on. The factory tool works. This is going to be 1 hour of taking off and putting on an alternator belt.
Yeah. I might pull this out just to do a hot tip video.
Yeah.
Just hold it with your thumb gently and spin it right round. Wow, that was incredibly easy.
And does no damage to the belt.
Or the motorcycle, or the
Motorcycle.
pulley cranker thingy.
But you can see how there's a risk of damaging the belt doing it with the...
Yeah. That's why it's okay to take it off that way, but you don't want to put it on that way.
Unless you're on the side of the road.
Yep. No rules apply on the side of the road.
That's right. And if you have the right size crescent wrench, you can actually just pop it on with the back side of the crescent wrench. I don't know if I can do that. Put it on backwards. Watch this.
Oh yeah, using the back side of the crescent wrench. How handy is that? Well, you didn't quite get it all the way in.
Yeah, but
That would get you home,
get it all the way in just by
forcing it. Cool.
ta-da.
Well, I think you should take it off one more time for the
I
crowd.
think I should. Once again for you folks in back. My God, that's a scary thought. People in the back of the internet. What the hell?
And then the alternator comes off with the E-Torx E10. Oh, the wobble extension came in handy.
Make sure you use a metric crescent wrench when you're working on your BMW.
That's not how that works. That is metric.
This side is SAE.
Ah.
That side's metric.
So you can only use it on one side.
10.
As you can tell, folks, we don't get out much. And there's the alternator. We'll clean that up and stick that on the shelf. Probably never need to put it in anybody's motorcycle, but we'll have it in case we do. Okay. These are T40s, 40. Hey, George's bike started. You might get a little oil out of these when you take them off. So there's two gaskets in here. The obvious one is the one around the outside, the perimeter gasket, which is super hard and shouldn't be. It should be a little pliable, so that's probably due to be replaced. The inner donut gasket that goes on, so the coil goes through here, the spark plug goes in there, the coil goes through here, and this keeps the oil from coming out through the spark plug or the coil hole. This one is easy to bung up when you're putting it back together. So I always recommend, if you do your own maintenance, that you keep a couple of these on hand for your oil or your valve check service. We have to make sure both of the rocker arms are loose.
Looking at that which the cam sensor senses. I don't know what they actually call it other than that, than which the cam sensor senses.
That works.
And the corresponding arrow.
Okay.
Those should be horizontal.
All right.
And with that in that position, you'll be able to sneak. You see or not? You see the hole inside the hole?
I don't know. Hopefully.
There's a whole nother hole.
And then this is the special non-official factory tool.
Which will slide right in. And that's how you can tell that you got it at top dead center, because it goes in about that far.
Yeah.
If it only goes in
That far,
that
you're not
far,
there.
you're not at top dead center. This is going through the flywheel into the back of the engine block. Can you see that little piece of plastic down in there underneath the chain? I don't know which side you got.
I don't either. Yeah, I can see it.
That's the chain rail.
Okay. Isn't that the thing that breaks?
That's the thing that breaks.
Okay. And we don't need to be careful because we're not going to use this engine anymore.
Right. Okay, go ahead.
Give it a shot.
Give it a shot. That wasn't too tight, actually.
You're saying that wasn't bad?
That wasn't bad.
That made a terrible noise.
Oh, did you take...
Did I do this the hard way?
Once again, if you're going to put this motor back together, you'll want to take out the chain tensioner down here first, so that you run less of a risk of snapping that chain rail when you do that. Especially if you're working on an 1150. If this were an 1150, there'd be a 99% chance
That I just
you'd be
broke the
throwing
engine.
the motor out, because it certainly would have broke the chain rail.
So, cam chain tensioner.
Yeah, take the cam chain tensioner out.
Yes, sir.
And if you have one of these on an 1150 that's stupid tight, you'll have to contact a machinist and have them make something that looks like this, so that you can go into the chain sprocket and hold it while you turn the bolt on the back of the cam.
That came out real easy.
Give you an idea of how tight those are. You see how that nice snap-on super hard tool is twisted?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one was a little tight.
Oh, cam chain tensioner. There you go.
Chain tension.
Now, is that something we should hang on to?
Yeah, scrap metal.
Okay. Scoop. Ooh, that was cool. Oil shot out of it. Yeah, Bill Murray's people will come after us. So this is a 15 millimeter to get these heads off, these studs, and you would want to do this a little bit at a time, and probably in a crossways fashion. This is the thing that when you put these back on, you have to come back 600 miles later and retorque them. You put a little bit of oil on them and you just retorque them. There's a video on the MOA channel about that, retorquing the heads. I think it was the first one I ever posted. Yeah, the cam chain tensioner is not having the spark plug out going to make taking the head off a problem.
General rule of assembly and disassembly is when you're disassembling something, you start with your smallest, lightest torque bolts, move up to your
bigger
next
ones.
uppest.
I don't remember doing all this when we fixed my bike a few years ago.
That's probably because I did.
Well, yeah, I did have you standing right next to me to tell me what to do the whole time. You, sir, are a liar. It is a 6 millimeter, not an 8. I mean, come on, George, don't you remember everything? The stupid thing turns the light off when you turn the camera on. Oh, that might be a Torx. What's the closest torque size to 8 millimeter?
It'd be a 50.
A 50. I'm not putting it back together.
That's true. Never mind. See, it's hard for me to think that way.
Yeah, I know. That's because you always put them back together.
Crap wasn't in the way. I'd be able to get these body panels I put back here 4 years ago out. Who put all this crap here?
I'm pretty sure you did. All right, so I removed.
Instead of keep fighting with this thing. Of course, you're going to have to rotate it
Yeah, opposite.
360 degrees. Now this can come out.
Okay. Now I should be able to just hit it with a hammer and pull it out. You know what? I think I want to take the spark plugs out. All right, now that we have the right tool, we can get the spark plug out.
You know, I knew right where this stuff was 5 years ago.
5 years ago when you moved in here. Oh, the spark plugs don't look too bad. So now the spark plugs are out. I'm gonna get a hammer. Cylinder head off. There's the valves. Oh, it's a little messy. Here, let's clean that up. So there's the valves. Big valves for exhaust, little valves for intake. What's this sensor that's plugged in here? The crankshaft sensor? Or camshaft sensor? Huh?
Knock, knock.
Knock sensor.
See, that's the
That's the knock
mechanic's joke.
sensor.
Knock, knock. Who's there? Pre-ignition.
Pre-ignition. Pre-ignition who? So these are the studs that the head was mounted on. There's the cam chain and the cam chain. The plastic thing on top is the cam chain rail, correct?
One's a rail, one's a tensioner. So
One's a
the one
tensioner.
on top is on this side. Oh, look at that! You did break it.
I did break it?
Yeah, that's why.
Oh yeah. So that's broken.
That's broken.
Oh yeah, I can see there now. It's not supposed to be like this. So I did in fact break the engine.
Yep.
Good
See,
thing
at
we're
this
not putting
point,
it back
you'd be
together.
taking it all apart, throwing it all out.
Yeah. So there's a piston. You can see the wear is pretty even. The carbonization is pretty even, actually. Not like when we took mine apart and it was all splotchy.
Yep.
So that means good combustion. Nice and even. Is that a gasket? That's a gasket.
And since you asked, even though it doesn't really matter to anyone other than people who want to know,
Yeah.
on the chain tensioner is the chain tensioning rail versus just the chain rail.
Right.
On the other side, it's the other way around because the chain tensioner
Goes in the top. All right. Well, I'm not going to show you how to take apart the other side. It's mostly just like this side.
It's
But
just the same, only upside
different.
down. Now you'll want to
Wo ist der tool?
take this here,
And hold it.
sprocket out, and then just
Okay.
make sure this doesn't.
Now it's time on sprockets when we dance.
Liebe meine Alpha.
So just hold that.
Yep.
All right. Piston is all the way in and coming back out. All the way out.
And they call it top dead center because for a little bit of crank rotation, there is minimal
Piston movement. So that's it? That's how we know the other side's at top dead center? Are they both at top dead center at the same time?
Yes.
Here it is now with both cylinder heads off. So that's it for the first part of disassembling this R1200 air and oil cooled engine. We got the cylinder head off. The cylinder is still on there with the piston inside it. I only showed you one side. The other side is tiny bit different, but it's almost exactly the same. The cam chain tensioner on this side is on the bottom. On the other side, it's on the top. This is the right side of the engine. So that's the one that's on the bottom. The cam chain tensioner on the left is on the top. And as you saw, it was not really all that many fasteners, and it came down to just 4 nuts holding the cylinder head on the studs. So we'll keep going on that, and we'll be back with part 2, where I will show you what's inside the cylinder head itself. We'll take a look at the valves and the valve springs and all that stuff. Until then, take it easy, ride safe, and we'll see you in the next video.